You know, I've lived long enough to see a strange pattern in people. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much you give, or how big your heart is. Sometimes people will still disrespect you and ignore you like you're invisible. And if you're anything like me, you've probably sat in a quiet room wondering, what did I do wrong? Why do they treat me like I don't matter? Let me tell you something that took me years to understand. It's not always about you. It's about what you allow. And sometimes, it's about what's missing inside them. 1. You're too available, and people don't value what's always there. When I was younger, I thought that being there for people, day or night, would make them appreciate me. So I picked up every call, showed up every time, gave without hesitation. But you know what happened? They stopped noticing. It's like having the same view outside your window every day. At first, you admire it, then it just becomes part of the background. People don't value what they think will never leave. So, if you're always the first to show up, always the one giving, they'll start expecting it, not appreciating it. Sometimes you need to step back, not to be petty, but to remind them what it feels like when you're not there. Because absence speaks louder than presence when people take you for granted. 2. You've set no boundaries, and people respect what you protect. I used to think being nice was enough. If I'm good to people, they'll be good to me. But here's the truth I learned the hard way. Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's self-neglect. People will test you, not because they're bad, but because it's human nature. If you let them cross a line once, they'll do it again, not out of malice, but because you didn't stop them. Think of it like a garden. You plant beautiful flowers, but if you don't put up a small fence, people will walk right through. Not because they hate the flowers, but because there's nothing stopping them. You don't have to be cold or harsh, but you do have to be clear. I respect myself enough to expect the same from you. 3. Their disrespect reflects their own insecurities. This one took me the longest to understand. Some people disrespect you because they're battling things inside themselves. It's not your fault. It's their own fears, their own doubts, their own need to feel bigger by making someone else feel small. I remember a man I worked with years ago. No matter what I did, it was never enough. Criticized me, ignored my efforts, made me feel small. But over time I realized he wasn't belittling me because of who I was. He was doing it because of who he wasn't. Hurt people, and insecure people project their insecurities onto others. The key? Don't absorb their poison. Their behavior says more about them than it ever will about you. To reduce, Button 4. You've forgotten your own value. Here's the hardest pill to swallow. Sometimes people disrespect you because you've forgotten to respect yourself. You've settled. You've made excuses for them. You've stayed longer in places where your soul was starving. And when you accept less, people assume you deserve less. But the truth is, you teach people how to treat you by showing them how you treat yourself. Stand up straighter. Speak up when something feels wrong. Walk away when you're not valued. Not to punish them, but to remind yourself of who you are. No for none. So, what's the lesson here? You're not invisible. You've just been standing in the wrong places for too long. You're not too much. You've just been around people who aren't enough. And you're not hard to love. You've just been loving people who don't know how to receive it. Don't shrink to fit into spaces that don't see your worth. Don't lower your voice just because they refuse to listen. And never forget, the right people will never need to be reminded of your value. If this touched something in your heart, like the video, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe to Mind Wisdom TV. Because your worth isn't something people give you, it's something you carry with you, whether they see it or not.